Dr. Stephen Birchak, affectionately known as Dr. Bird, is a nationally recognized expert in child development and character education. Dr. Birchak has been a college professor for over 25 years and is the author of a popular book titled How to Build a Child's Character by Tapping into Your Own. He also coached 7 nationally ranked college wrestling teams and was named National Little College Wrestling Coach of the Year. Dr. Birchak's experiences as a mental health counselor, professor, author, coach, parent, husband, and reformed class clown have given him the framework for valuable principles and how we can stay connected to each other. Each year, Dr. Birchak speaks to thousands of people in businesses, organizations, and schools. His principles for how we stay connected have become valuable insights for leaders, school administrators, teachers, parents, and professionals in helping roles. Please join Dr. Stephen Birchak for the 5 Golden Rules for Staying Connected to Children.
All of us have experiences in life that we draw upon. Some of these experiences tend to bring joy to our lives, and other times these experiences can be devastating to us. And my life is unique, like all other persons have a unique life, but it's also given me the opportunity to draw a perspective on life. And I was raised as one of 5 children in a middle-class family. Father was a factory worker, mother was a beautician and a homemaker. But one of the things that always made me uniquely different from any other kid out there is that I was always the shortest kid in every one of my classes, from kindergarten through my doctoral program. And sometimes as I've looked back and I've tried to gather insights as to how those things affected me, I realized that I really was that hyperactive, distractible kid that probably drove all of his teachers crazy along the way. My wife has often said, you were probably one of those cute kids that if you weren't so cute, we'd just kill you. And I realized that all this energy that I had came out in a lot of different ways, but I also realized that I had a lot of people that stayed connected to me, and through those connections, I think that it helped me to develop as a human being. Sometimes all this hyperactivity came out in different ways, and I know that being the shortest kid, I was sometimes a target for bullying, but I also realized along the way that if I could make the bullies laugh, they wouldn't steal my lunch money. So I was trying to put my energy into some positive things. But even though I got in a lot of trouble, and even though sometimes when I was in school, it tended to have that energy come out in ways that wasn't always productive, I learned along the way that there are several universal human truths, and one of them in particular is that our connections to each other are the things that allow us to prosper and to survive. And when I say the 5 golden rules for staying connected to children, in this day and age where we hurry and we're tense and there's a lot of anger and aggression out there, there's no other time like right now that we need to stay connected to each other. And one thing that's abundantly clear is that over a period of time, one of the most important things that we can do is to focus in on those connections, because they're going to be the source of all of our joy and all of our productivity and success in life. There's one universal human truth that I've discovered along the way, is that we as human beings are wired to be connected to each other. And in my professional life, I've spent a lot of time studying psychopathology, aggression, character development. And what I have also discovered is that most problems that we have can always go back to our human connections or our lack of connectedness to each other. And I think as adults we need to continually try to understand these connections. We need to understand that we are agents of change in a child's life, and we need to understand if we're losing our edge in terms of adapting to the world or creating those new skills for staying connected to each other. All of our success, joy, contentment, and our ability to thrive in this world can be brought back to our human connections. And what I believe is that when we lose each other, we lose our will to live, We lose our will to connect to one another, and we also lose our sanity ultimately in the end. And there's no doubt, with all of the information explosion and all of the technology and all of the distractions out there, that it's probably a more difficult time now to be a child than any other time in human history. All the more reason why it's so much more important for us to realize how much we need each other and how important it is for us to stay connected.
But a couple of things I want to talk about today is that, you know, clearly in all of this stuff with regard to how we connect with each other, we have to really think, how serious is a lot of the stuff that we get ourselves excited about? I think one of the things that we need more than anything else in this world is that we need a sense of humor. We need to be able to take stuff that happens to us and be able to look at it and say, well, you know, how serious is this? How serious is this issue that I'm dealing with? And how serious have I become over this? So I think sometimes we have to have a sense of humor, but we also look at what are the major differences, and you notice these in your own life. What are the major differences in those people that are violent versus nonviolent? And I know that things have changed. And everybody tells me that all the time. They say, oh, things have changed. Kids are so different today, and kids are doing this different, and kids are doing that different. And we don't have, you know, we got DVDs, and we have MP3 players, and we have all this technology. And it's very true that things are different. And any of you that grew up in my era, we didn't even have IEPs. You remember that? We didn't even have an IEP. You just, if you got in trouble, the principal calls in your parents, which was like, you know, deadly if you ever had that happen to you. But we didn't have any IEPs, although he would bring in his staff. And I know that for me, I got in trouble plenty of times. So we had the principal would call in my parents and bring them in and say, and he would bring in his staff and introduce his staff and say, Mr. and Mrs. Birchak. We had this great big principal. His name was Mr. Jacobs, and he had this southern drawl. And he said, Mr. and Mrs. Birchak, thank you for coming to the school today. As you know, we have identified Stevie. Stevie has had some problems, and we have identified him. As you know, we have 2 classifications, 2 levels. He made the first level some time ago when he was in the 1st grade, and that is class clown. We have found that he was a class clown. He was identified as a class clown. That's trouble. But now Stevie has made it to the next level. And for that, I brought in my staff. I'd like to introduce my staff. We have Miss Johnson here. She's the school secretary. And Stevie, as you know, had convinced the other children that if they sniffed the mimeograph papers that it would make them high. We had a problem with that. We also have the custodian here, Bob Jenkins. Bob Jenkins was concerned because Stevie had plugged up the bathrooms in the boys' bathroom with our industrial strength paper towel, and it had leaked all the way down to Miss Howard's kindergarten room. So that was a problem. And last but not least, a member of my staff, Nurse Ratchet. She was very concerned about Stevie because Stevie had started the Battle Royale wrestling match on the top of the monkey bars, and little Timmy Johnson wasn't the same since he fell off the top. And so what we have come to the conclusion, Mr. and Ms. Birchak, that Stevie is mental. And I remember my mom sitting there next to my dad. Of course, my mom, she's like any mom. She goes, are you sure he's mental? and my dad looks up and he says, Mr. Jacobs, we had our suspicions from the beginning. So I'm sitting there with them, and of course, what's your IEP? Then this is no IEP. But then he just turns around to my dad and says, well, we'll give him a good whooping when he gets home, as though that's going to handle everything that we have in our kids' lives. And I had enough of those trips into the principal's office where I'd get myself into trouble. But that was it. And fortunately, though, I think that we do, you know, we think about what things are like for kids today. We have a lot of really good stuff for them. I think when we have these IEPs, we talk about school psychologists and counselors and all these people getting together, we've got lots of good things that we're trying to give to the children.